Good afternoon, everyone. May 8th, 2018. I'm Eric. I'm here at the, what is it here? PensacolaQatar.com. Well, that crazy looking broad. Alright. Thank you, Beta, for the links. Exposed and dependent Germany desperate to avoid trade war. I'm not going to try to pronounce their names. I'm just going to butcher them. So, all right. Before I can begin with this article, I have to explain a couple of things. When automakers like BMW leave a city, more than just those jobs are lost. Many businesses revolve around each of the automakers back, like in the 1990s, late 1990s. And, well, if a auto manufacturer leaves a location, a city, all the businesses that are connected to that automaker, like Ford, GM, Chrysler, they begin a slow rotting process. And I guess it really depends on what your idea of slow is, but it takes about 6 months to a year for a business to end up closing behind such a move. First thing that happens is workers, they get laid off. They'll keep the most essential people there until the very end, but they'll lay off everyone else. And because they cut their orders to the linked businesses, those businesses have to begin to lay people off. And before you know it, the business is gone. Okay? And the same thing goes here with BMW in South Carolina. If BMW were to pull out of South Carolina, it would cause a domino effect. At first, the layoffs would come from BMW, and then the layoffs would come from all the derived demand businesses. And what derived demand is demand created as a result of a manufacturing outfit or some other business. It's a business-to-business kind of deal. So, Germany is Europe's biggest exporter to the United States, and there's more than 1 million jobs at stake for them. Germany is desperate to avoid a European Union trade war with the United States. President Donald Trump, when he was, what do you call it, when they're president-elect, he talked about many times about the unfair trade deals that the United States has, and it's true, we do have some very unfair trade deals. And it could be that he really is trying to make things better stateside, but I don't think he can do that by being police state-ish and all of that. Freedom cures most things. But there's a run-up to a June 1st deadline for Donald Trump to impose steel and aluminum tariffs on the EU. Berlin is urging its European partners to show some flexibility and pursue a broad trade deal that benefits both sides. That puts Germany at odds with its European peers such as France. Paris, the other half of the motor-driving European integration, resents Germany's big trade surplus and wants a tougher EU stance against the U.S. tariffs. There's a great danger of slipping into a trade war that way, Holger Bingmann, president of Germany's BGA Foreign Trade Association, told Reuters. Mindful of data from the German-American Chambers of Industry and Commerce that shows more than 1 million German jobs are directly or indirectly dependent on exports to the United States, he cautioned against EU threats of counter tariffs. And it could be that the EU ends up laying down and taking the fucking. Could be. That way, the Europeans would only embrace the logic of protectionists, he said. The European Commission has said the EU will set duties on 2.8 billion euros or $336 billion of U.S. exports, including peanut butter and denim jeans, if its metals exports to the United States worth 6.4 billion euros are subject to tariffs. So they're already looking to block American exports to the country, or put a very large tariff on them as a means of retaliation. Berlin is pushing the idea of an agreement to lower tariffs across a broad spectrum of products, especially in manufacturing. We can negotiate again, but we should talk about all industrial tariffs, said a senior German official. Now, France wants there to be a permanent and unconditional exemption for the EU from the steel and aluminum tariffs, adding that that's the prerequisite for any other option. So basically, if Trump don't cave into the permanent and unconditional exemption, they're not even willing to negotiate. These difficulties risk driving EU countries apart, weakening their bargaining position with Trump, playing into his hands as he tries to make U.S. businesses more competitive globally. Let's talk about for a moment why we're not already competitive globally. Since the 1970s, we've seen a steady rise in prices on all goods across the board. This is a result of Nixon's policy of not backing the dollar and gold and creating the petrodollar. So slowly but surely our inflation has risen and risen and risen. Now we're at a point where if you don't make $12, $15 an hour, you're probably not going to be able to pay your rent. Rent here is getting higher and higher and higher. The more people that move here, the higher the rent is going to get. And of course, people from Baltimore and those kinds of places are fleeing and coming to places like South Carolina. So far, Germany and France's differences have largely been hidden behind the EU position that Washington must give a permanent exemption from the steel and aluminum tariffs. But as the June 1st deadline nears, EU trade ministers must resolve their differences quickly to give European Trade Commissioner Cecilia Malmström a clear mandate for negotiations with the U.S. administration. Build better cars. Concerned that a tit-for-tat escalation of tariffs could affect them next, German car makers are trying to mitigate their exposure to any trade war. BMW has quietly stopped exporting its X3 off-roader from the United States to China. Okay? So that's one less car that's going to be made here. And this plant move could happen as soon as June. Why do I say as soon as June? Because in June, the BMW plants shut down here in South Carolina anyway. And this is a practice that's done across the auto industry. They shut down and they change all their tooling and their dies over to the next model. And it happens a couple times a year. Most people that have the benefits take their vacation, their paid vacations at that time, and return to work. So they've stopped exporting its X3 off-roader from the United States to China, retooling its factory in Shenyang, China to produce the X3 model locally. The X3 is now also produced at a plant in Roseland, South Africa. They say that any switch from one factory to another is costly, takes months to plan and implement. Let me stop right there for a moment. The plans are already in place, and it would only take BMW a month, 1 month, to fully close down the plant here. So any switch from one factory to another is costly, and by the way, China could pick up some of that cost to make it a more attractive option to BMW and Mercedes. So let me see where I leave off. Takes months to plan and implement, and is taken from a long-term view. BMW board member Peter, I can't pronounce that one, just a BMW board member said, "We have to make decisions like about factories in Spartanburg, South Carolina, or factories in Mexico, which are based on a horizon of 20 to 30 years, he told Reuters in March. BMW has been here for a while. I don't think it's been quite 20 years, but we're getting close to that." He says that exchanging strategies every time a tweet comes out would drive them crazy, and it would. Tensions around the car sector have been stoked on both sides of the Atlantic. Okay, in January of 2017, when he was president-elect, Trump complained there was too many Mercedes-Benz cars visible on New York streets and threatened to impose a border tax of 35% on vehicles imported to the United States. Sigmar Gabriel, then Germany's economy minister, replied that the United States should build better cars. Let me stop right there for a moment. I worked at BMW on and off for like a while as a quality control inspector. BMWs are fucking junk. They are fucking junk, and I know this 100% certainty. When one of us inspectors, and the whole purpose for us to be there is to stop defective cars from leaving to their destination, wherever it happens to be. But when we stop the line, somebody comes up, signs off on it, and lets it go. Now, if there are people with higher IQs in charge, they would understand that doing this, allowing this defective car out, could cause a recall, in which it would cost way many more millions of dollars to recall those cars, if instead of just not letting that car off, the cost of manufacturing the car. But they sign off on it, and they got defective headliners, defective, all kinds of stuff. And I inspected everything from headliners to door panels to body, what would you call them, bolt points, I guess, and everything between. Their cars are junk. So he doesn't really have much room to talk about their quality product, because it's not really quality. Gabriel's comments reflect the pride Germans feel in the quality products their country exports, a post-war success that has helped them regain respect and recognition abroad. Of course, that was the case before the war. Surplus tension. Yet, the surpluses this success has brought are bone of contention that affect Germany's relations with its peers. France has complained for years about Germany's current account surplus, a measure of the flow of goods, services, and investments, which was the world's largest for the second year running in 2017. And this is part of the problem with being in the EU, is jealousy. And the only way for BMW to offset that is to do something for France or other countries, or along with other countries. The head of the International Monetary Fund said in January the buildup of large current account surpluses in countries such as Germany was partly responsible for the rise of protectionism elsewhere. France wants Germany to steer its surplus towards economically weaker Southern Europe and raise domestic investment to reduce the surplus. So too does the IMF and the United States, hoping that an increase in investment would stimulate domestic demand in Germany and help boost imports from its trading partners. Germany's Finance Minister Olaf Scholz presented government finance plans on Wednesday that showed investment rising this year and next before decreasing through 2022 to below the 2017 level. Merkel and Trump had a meeting in Washington, but made no breakthrough of an agreement. Damn, this one's getting long. In 2017, German exports to the United States reached 112 billion euros, more than twice the next biggest EU country, Britain, according to Eurostat Statistics Office. Germany's problem is a lack of realism with respect to its own fragile strategic situation, said Jan text you? I'm not sure. A director at the German Marshall Fund of the United States, a think tank. He said Britain also showed a lack of awareness of the consequences of its economic policies and failed to realize its own strategic long-term interests are largely similar to those of the United States. So, I've covered the possibility that Germany could leave or could remove BMW from the United States as a result of trade disagreements and other policy disagreements, and it looks like I may have been correct. We will see. Hope you all have a great day. Kill the state before it kills you.